And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Welcome to Chasing the Trophy Fantasy Football Podcast on the Dirty Boot Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Sanders, here with my good buddy Clay Williams, the producer of the Dirty Boot Sports Network. And we're coming at you for Season 3, Episode 8, the start, sit, sleeper of Week 1. It is upon us, guys. We are recording this just a couple days before the season gets kicked off on Thursday. And we're going to jump right on in. We got a lot to cover, and it's going to go fast. So I'm going to probably be talking about it as fast as you've ever heard. And then I'm going to run through a bunch of injuries and news, and then we're going to get into our start, sit, sleepers. We're going to give you a couple waiver wire additions that are owned in less than 60% kind of toward the end. But first, let's go ahead and get started with a word of prayer. Lord, just thank you for everything you continue to bless us with. Just thank you for continuing to help us, allow us to enjoy this wonderful sport, fantasy football, because without you, we know that if you did not deem it possible for us to be able to do this, then it would not be so. And we're so thankful for that opportunity, Lord, and we just really enjoy it. And Lord, just please be with Nora Case, continue to deal with her immunosuppression and her getting ready for her vaccines, Lord. And we also come to you in praise and thank you for Miss Tanya Nora and healing her. She got a great report back saying that she is now cancer-free and she continues treatments. But Lord, that's just a testimony to your ability to heal, Lord. And also we want to be in prayer for our men's and women's retreats for Fair Park Baptist Church coming up. It's near and dear to my heart. So that's where I go, and I'm fairly heavily involved in both of those retreats. And we just want to thank you for that opportunity to just worship together in your name and just and use it as a tool to glorify your kingdom. And Lord, just continue to let us be a light for you and continue to lead, guide, and direct as you see fit and to glorify your name. Your name we pray, Lord. Amen. All right, guys. So in this episode, Clay and I are going to give our start, sit, sleeper picks at each position. We're going to pick starts. So we're going to pick starters and busts from players outside ESPN rankings of the top 5, top at quarterback, top 10 at running back, top 10 at wide receiver, top 5 at tight end. Those are primarily all your stud players that should be matched up and should start no matter what. We'll also pick sleeper players that are outside the top 12 at quarterback, top 24 at running back, top 24 at wide receiver, and top 12 at tight end. Those are all players that would typically not be started in traditional 12-team leagues that we think are being slept on for that week. And, that's, of course, upcoming week, and that's where we're doing it for this week. Also be throwing in some top streaming options at defense and kicker at the end. And like I alluded to just before the prayer, we're also going to give you a few picks at each position, or a pick at each position of who we think might be the week 1 waiver wire ads for week 1 that are owned in less than 60% of ESPN leagues. Also, we want to thank our sponsors, Big Reed BBQ, Mimi's Children's Boutique, and Crown Detailing. And our title sponsor for this episode is Crown Detailing, who offers mobile car detailing services, conveniently servicing your vehicle at your home or your place. They provide various services for cars, boats, campers, and RVs serve Ruston and surrounding areas. Reserve your spot today by contacting them at 318-474-0859 or find them on Facebook by searching Crown Detailing. School started back, all these games going. You want to get your ride shined up before you pull up to the game, or your high schooler or child or college student or whatever going back to school. They want to get that vehicle detailed. That way they can be looking good and fresh going up into class. Give Crown Detailing a call and they'll get you fixed up. We appreciate them supporting us. Y'all go out and support them. All right, right on into our news and injuries. There is a ton, guys, and I'm sure if you've done your draft, you got your team set up, you see all these question marks from all these people, and you might be freaking out a little bit. Such and such hadn't practiced in a month, Don't worry, all right? majority of these people are going to be coming back, no problem. So we're going to jump right on in. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, been out with a calf injury for, it feels like, forever and a day now. He was back at practice yesterday. He's going to be fine. Don't worry. Let's see. CD Lamb, contract extension, good to go. Don't let that out tag scar you. Fire him up. He has signed his contract. He is back at practice. They just have him tagged as out right now on the, I think it's the non-football injured list or something like that. That way they can keep from having to cut anybody from their roster before they activate. But he will be back. He will play. Puka's still out with that knee. He's not out. He's been practicing in full this week, and he will be good to go per Sean McVay. A little tidbit on Sean McVay. I heard from an injury analyst on one of the pods that I listen to. Apparently, Sean McVay elaborates on an injury. He is like 85% accurate on his news. So, like some of these coaches come out, like, we used to all mess around with Dr. Coach Pete Carroll, who's no longer with Seattle. And he would always be like, oh, yeah, they're going to be go. Like they'd be out for like 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Not so with Sean McVay. Typically, when Sean McVay talks about a guy being good to go or not going to be in there, he's pretty much about 85% accurate on that news, which I thought was a pretty cool stat to know. And he said, Puka's back at practice. He's going to be good to go for the game. Jamar Gibbs with a string injury, he's almost 100%. He will play, but I would say that I think Detroit probably limits him a little bit coming back from this, especially with the season ahead. They're not going to want to risk re-injury during the first game back, but I do think he plays, and obviously you got to fire him up being as high of a draft as he is. Devontae Adams, undisclosed injury. I'll be honest, I really can't stand these undisclosed injuries. I really wish they would just disclose them and list them. That way everybody will know, what it is, because it doesn't really matter at this point. If they come back, they come back and nobody will care. But anyway, closed injury, said he tweaked something in early August. I don't think that matters, but no play. I think he's just been resting, worried about it. He's a veteran. He's been this team for a long time. They're not worried about pushing him to play. So I would not worry. I'd be watching it, but I'd be willing to bet he's going to play. Sam Laporta for Detroit had that hamstring injury. He's back at practice. Coach said that the injury is no concern. I fully believe that. Jalen Waddle for Miami, undisclosed injury. It's another one of those, like they're being real discreet about it. But the coach, McDaniel, said he will practice this past Monday and that he's going to be fine. I fully believe that. They've just been putting a little bubble around him. Christian Kirk was back at practice this week. He's going to be fine. Keenan Allen with that foot injury. There's no update as of a couple of weeks ago, but there was some reports saying that it was just an issue with his cleat. I don't know how you get a foot injury, like if your cleat rubs a blister. I don't know. But supposedly they said that that's not going to be a problem. It's a minor issue. It'll be fixed. So I fully expect him to do, especially at his age. They're not going to rush him back. They'll get him back for the game, and he'll be good to go. DeAndre Hopkins, on the other hand, with that knee injury, coach said he expects him back for the opener. I would be probably less optimistic because whenever he first injured it, it was a 4 to 6 week time frame, and I think that was right at 4 weeks prior to week 1. So at his age, man, I would keep an eye on this. I would not be surprised if he misses week 1. Now, I don't think he misses more than that, but at worst, at best, he's probably limited at all. If not just a decoy for the game.
Regardless,
I would be
in my
very
opinion, I think
if they rushed him back.
I think that's good news regardless if you drafted Hopkins, because I drafted him in like 2 of my leagues, and I expected him to miss two, 3, even more weeks. And, for him to even have a shot week 1, I'm perfectly fine, especially with how low he was going.
Absolutely. So, yeah, just keep an eye on that, but I would err on the side of caution. Jaylen Warren with that hamstring injury, he's going to be back at practice on Monday. Should be good to go. I was kind of hesitant about that, but with him being back at practice on Monday, I think he's going to be fine. He's going to play. Jordan Addison with that ankle injury has been limited at practice on Monday. I think he's fine. They're just trying to take care of him, manage his reps. Mike Williams for the Jets, they say he will be back. He will be available for game 1. But I would not be surprised if he's a little bit limited coming off that season-ending ACL injury. They're going to probably be a little careful with him. I don't blame them. Now, they don't have very much depth at wide receiver, so they will need him, and I bet he's on the field, but I'd be shocked if they call his number very much week one. And typically, you probably didn't draft him to start anyway. If you are trying to start him, I'd probably look elsewhere for somebody a little bit more healthy going into week one. But I think he might be a solid option for you later on the season. That's Mike Williams with that knee injury. David Njoku, some undisclosed injury again. It was stated that he practiced yesterday. I've seen no updates since then, but do think that that's probably a good possibility that he did. But I would be up on that update just to make sure. But if he's coming back to practice, he's going to play. Curtis Samuel back at practice, good to go with that toe injury. Nothing to worry about there. But, like I said, he's probably not a starter for you, but he's good to go if you need him at your flex. Tyler Lockett with this mysterious leg injury, which a leg injury is quite broad considering how many parts of your leg there are. But he has not practiced since August the 14th, guys. And like somebody with his injury history, he stated he will play in the opener. And, he's been one of those in the past where he said that and he did play. But it's like, how limited is he going to be if he hasn't practiced that long with this, whatever it is, leg injury, not knee. I don't know what kind of injury it is, but even if he suits up, I'd be willing to bet he's limited at best. And with JSN, Smith and Jigba coming up in that offense, I'd really be hesitant to start Tyler Lockett on my team. Then we got news today. Kyle Pitts has a hamstring injury. He was limited at practice. I'd keep an eye on that, but this could just be an injury designation disclosure, something he may have been dealing with, and they've been managing his reps, and they have to disclose why he's managing his reps. So, because until this point, when they come out with official injury reports with the NFL, they don't have to list a lot of stuff that that they're managing and dealing with throughout practice. So I don't know if this is a new injury as much as it's them managing something that he's dealt with already in the preseason. So I would just keep an eye on it, but I'd be willing to bet Kyle Pitts is probably going to be good to go if he's still practicing limited. Brock Bowers, foot injury. I can't even tell you I think he's been out for like 2-3 weeks, but the coach stated last week he feels good about him being on the field for the opener. No updates since then. Maybe for like the national anthem or something like that. But as far as playing, I have no idea. I would not rely on him. For one, Brock Bowers is a rookie. He's missing all this vital time for the last several weeks, not playing with the starters, not getting that chemistry down with Gardner Minshew. Like, he was already like the third, maybe the fourth option on this offense, and he hasn't practiced in weeks. I don't know how comfortable, even if he did play, I would be with him and putting him in my lineup for this week. Now, I would sit him if he plays. You can see what he does. Or, when he gets back to practicing for maybe a whole week, then you might want to fire him up and see what happens. But, y'all, if you've listened to the pod, I'm not a big Brock Bowers fan this year anyway. So I would be very hesitant and probably sit out on Bowers with that foot injury. Rashid Shaheed with his toe foot injury was back at practice last Friday, said he is good to go and ready. And I firmly believe that. Brandon Cooks with a knee injury, still not at practice at the end of last week. No update. Honestly, I don't really like Cooks anyway. He ain't been practicing. Do with it what you will. He's probably going to be limited. I think Dallas is going to be looking elsewhere to go with the ball anyway. Romeo Doubs, last but certainly not least, in an offense that we're all watching to see who emerges out of this wide receiver room, has a hand injury that apparently happened, and it's a contusion is what they said. Limited for practice today, but they said he should be good to go. I firmly believe that. They're probably just managing it, trying to get the swelling, to go down. He should be fine. He's been practicing and playing all off season, but I do think that gives a boost to Christian Watson, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And that's going to pretty much wind out our injuries and updates. If you did not hear a guy on your team that was on this list, that probably means because he's probably owned in like less than 50% of leagues, and we just not covering. I ain't got time to cover that many people in a pod. We're already trying to make it shorter for y'all. So we're going to go ahead and jump right on into our start, sit, sleepers, and I'm going to let Clay kick it off with his starts.
All right. So how are we going to do this? We're going to go all 4 starts?
That's the way we've done it in the past. We do all 4 starts, and then we go all 4 sits, and then we all do all 4 sleepers.
All right.
That way it kind of keeps it in a group together.
Yeah. So you want me to give each? What we're gonna go back and forth? We're gonna do all 3. I mean, all 4 of mine right now.
That's fine. We can go back. We can go back and forth. That way we keep it to quarterbacks, running backs. So you go ahead with your quarterback.
All right. And we're using ESPN's rankings as kind of our basis of top 5, top 10, whatever it is. But my start is going to be CJ Stroud. He's at number 7 this week for ESPN. I like this spot a lot. There's a lot of reports about how bad Indianapolis has been historically. Week 1, I think they're like 1-14 against the spread the past couple years. So not looking good for Indianapolis to come out very strong this week. You're in a dome in Indianapolis, so good. You won't have any weather concerns for Stroud. And I think just overall, I'm excited to see how that offense looks for Houston and Indianapolis defense. I'm not very high on this year. Whenever we did the breakdown for them for the podcast, I just did not like the talent that they had on defense. And Stroud, I think, just has a really good week. I don't think he's going to be absolutely incredible this season overall, but I do like him a lot this week to come out firing.
Absolutely. I think that's a great pick. I mean, and like I've talked about before, I love Stroud. I just didn't like the price that you were having to draft him at. And I think he's an absolutely competent quarterback, and he will be very good at fantasy.
Yeah.
If I drafted him, I'm firing him up, no doubt. And then my start for this week is going to be Kyler Murray. A little bit lower. Probably breaking up a little bit, Anna Clay. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It's going in and out a little bit, but we can hear most of it.
But yeah, Kyler Murray at Buffalo. For one, Buffalo lost a ton of starters off that defense. Do I think Sean McDermott will probably still have them serviceable? Probably. But the weather's still going to be mild in Buffalo. We have not reached those crazy weather, those weather temperatures and forecasts yet. There's a lot of buzz around this Arizona offense, and I fully expect them to show up. I really do. Kyler Murray's had a healthy offseason. He's been working with Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner, the rookie Trey Benson, Michael Wilson. I fully expect them to show up and show out. I think Murray probably puts this team on his back more so than people realize. I think he's got enough experience and maturity at this point. I think we see him take a step forward that we have not seen yet this year, and I think it starts with Buffalo this week with their crippled defense from losing all those experienced starters from last year. And then, on to running backs.
Yeah, I like that. I like that pick. My running back is going to be Travis Etienne. I've never really been high on him as a player. I don't think I've had him at all in any league since he's came into the league. It's just he's always just that mid-tier running back. But last year he had a very good season, and I like the matchup this week for him. He's going at Miami, who, as we know, they lost a lot of defensive talent last year with injury, Chubb and Phillips. I'm not sure if they're back yet. They might be, but even if they are, coming off of Achilles and ACL injuries, they're going to be a little bit limited. That Miami defense overall, especially in the front seven, is not that great. So I like the matchup there. Obviously, Miami weather is going to be good. I think Etienne's going to have a pretty good game, and I think he'll have a good season overall, but I like him a lot this week 1.
Yeah, love that pick. I like Etienne a lot. I feel like we seen last year what his ceiling is, but when you consider 290 fantasy points, and I think he was running back 4?
I was thinking like 6 or somewhere around there. He's pretty high.
Give me 1 second. I'll tell you real quick. 3 in PPR.
Wow.
Nope, sorry. That's in standard. Hold on, that's in standard. It reset on me when it reloaded the page. Right. In PPR, he was still 3 in PPR last year.
That's crazy.
Yep. Travis Etienne.
He always just flies under the radar.
I think that's his. I think that's his ceiling, honestly.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've seen the last of that ceiling. And that's why I like him a lot. I think that's an excellent pick. My guy's going to be Josh Jacobs at Philadelphia. For the main reason, there's pretty much no competition behind him. Everybody's hurt. They got the 4th string guy that's his backup. And then also I think this could be a shootout of a game. Both offenses are coming in looking like they're primed and ready. I mean, I don't expect either defense to be terrible this year, but I think both offenses are going to be so good. Like I just think there's going to be an offensive game. Do I think it's going to be 40-40? No, probably not. But I think it's probably going to be at least probably maybe lower 30s to something 30s, and I think Josh Jacob gets a ton of work and a ton of catches out of the backfield. I mean, I think he's going to have a coming out party for Green Bay. And so I love, and I couldn't believe how low he was ranked this week. He almost could have made it as a sleeper, but he's ranked right there above ETN, and which is crazy. So I love Josh Jacobs at Philadelphia this week.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me a little bit there for that game, not for Jacobs. I like Jacobs a lot this week. That I just don't know what's going to happen in Brazil. Like that,
yeah.
That's
true.
It could be. You remember the Mexico game with the Chiefs and Rams where it was like 50-50, but they've also had some of them games where it's just kind of low scoring. So I do love Jacobs though from the running perspective. Week 1, like I think he's going to be awesome. But my receiver, I'm going with Chris Godwin. This is a game that I like a lot for fantasy this week. Tampa Bay and Washington. Chris Godwin though very underrated in my opinion overall as a player. Last year we saw Mike Evans be the number 1 target for Baker, and Godwin really kind of suffer from that. But I think Godwin, year 2 with Baker, consistency, got to work all offseason with him. I expect big things out of Godwin this year. And Washington secondary, not great, especially the cornerback 2. Their cornerback 1's a little bit better than their 2. So I think Godwin's going to get to feast on that a little bit and hopefully get more slot work because I think that's where he's at his best. I'm excited for Godwin this week. And wide receiver 28 right now. So, not a lot of people are locking him into their lineup, but I would this week.
That's right. Yeah, I love that pick also. Big fan of Godwin. I think this might, I don't think him being ranked this low is only going to last a couple weeks, and then I'd imagine we probably won't be talking about him too much after that.
Yeah.
And then so my start this week is T. Higgins versus New England. All right, so literally whenever I wrote this several hours ago, Chase was still sitting out, and then now in between that and us recording this podcast, Clay has informed me that Chase came back to practice today. So, but I still think all this extra work T. Higgins has had, Chase sitting out, I still think it boosts T. Higgins' rapport and chemistry with Burrow. We already seen Burrow support both of them. T. Higgins is healthy. New England is still rebuilding in general. I mean, they've always been known for that defense. And Gerard Mayo, he's a defensive player, probably, fairly defensive minded, but that offense is still rebuilding. Their defense is not what it used to be. I mean, they let Matthew Judon go, who was kind of the anchor of that defense. And I really want to see, I feel like this is going to be T. Higgins. And he's not only that, he's healthy, but he's looking to get that big time contract. And he knows if he produces, he's going to get that, whether it's in Cincinnati or not. So I love T. Higgins this week at New England or at home against New England.
Yeah. T's going to be awesome, I think, all year. I expect a lot out of Burrow, T, and Chase. I think it's going to be a great year. Let's go to tight ends.
Absolutely. Yep.
Tight ends. I've got going back to that Brazil game, actually. I'm going Dallas Goedert. It's a player I'm not high on this year at all. I kind of mentioned him as a bust, but I'm interested in him week 1. One of the biggest issues with Goddard every year is health. So week 1, he's at his healthiest. I think he had an issue a couple weeks ago in practice, but that's all cleared. He's not on the injury report. Jalen Hurts, week 1, going against a pretty good Green Bay pass rush, but in my opinion, Green Bay's weakness is the linebackers. Quay Walker, not really a great pass coverage guy, so I think Goddard's going to get some good opportunities across the middle there. And it's not an awesome play, but I think this week Goddard's going to be above average. So let's go Goddard with the start.
Honestly, a little surprised there. I'm not surprised. I did look at that because I was thinking does he get some more work if they get enough pass rush on him? But anyway, no, look, that definitely supports my sit that we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But my tight end is going to be Kyle Pitts. at home versus Pittsburgh. Now, this was about the same time Clay texted me about the hamstring thing, but look, if Kyle Pitts plays, if he gets a full practice in, for one, Pittsburgh, I feel like Pittsburgh's probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, I don't know this for sure, but they'll be better than, probably the Giants or maybe Vegas. But I think they're not going to be much better. And I think Kyle Pitts and this Atlanta offense has got something to prove, especially after the last couple of years with Arthur Smith. And not to mention they're going up against their former head coach on the other team. So you want to talk about a revenge game for pretty much a whole team and an organization and a fan base. It's at Atlanta in the Dome. They're going to be crazy, man. I think everybody's going to be fired up. You think Kyle Pitts ain't looking to go out there and show his coach that pretty much suppressed him for 2 years doing what he can do to go out there and put it up big? Give me some Kyle Pitts in Pittsburgh, especially. I mean, I think even if he probably does very well for a tight end for you this week. So, and that's our starts, guys. And we're going to go right on into our sits, and I'm going to let Clay kick us off with his sit at quarterback.
My bad. I had my mute on there.
Oh, you good?
I'm going back to Brazil. I'm sitting Jordan Love this week. I'm pretty big on Love overall for the season, but this week I'm a little bit lower. As I said, the Brazil game, I'm a little iffy overall. It's something about that just feels really weird. But I think that Philadelphia defense really struggled last year, and they made some changes. I think they're going to be very motivated to come in and prove a point week 1. And I think it's going to be more of a Josh Jacobs game, which kind of supports your start for Jacobs this week. And there's so many pieces in that receiving room for Green Bay that I just don't really know which way to go yet. So for now, I would sit Love, go with some of these lower options. There's plenty down there in that 10 to 20 range that I would prefer over Love this week. Now, is Love going to have a fine week? Probably so. But I don't love him, especially as the number 8 quarterback this week. I think Philadelphia is going to have a bounce back season overall, especially with their defense. So we're going to sit Love this week.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from with Love. I don't know if I completely agree, but he could be jet lagged for all we know, So I could see where you're coming from with that. My sit is going to be Justin Herbert. Not that that's probably a big surprise, but there are some people that still drafted him. Supposedly, he's pretty much back at 100%, but he's going to be at home against Las Vegas. I expect Las Vegas' defense to be much improved under Pierce. He's a defensive legend, probably a Pro Bowl, Hall of Famer. And I need to see Herbert healthy, completely playing, and then I want to see his plan, like how Greg Roman plans to use him in their offense. I really would like to see that before I fire him up to start him. I'm not completely out on Justin Herbert this year. I'm not saying that he's going to be top 5, 6 like he's been in the past couple years, but I do think he could be a top 12 quarterback this year easily. But this week, I would not play him to see what happens, and because of his foot injury, just to make sure he's past it and to see how Greg Roman uses him. So I'm out on Justin Herbert this week at home against Vegas.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Let's see. My running back sit is going to be Zamir White. Zamir White for Vegas, staying in that game. Going against the Chargers, I think the Chargers are just here to ground and pound and run the clock and play physical defense, and I think you see that a lot this week. I'd expect the Chargers to win this game pretty easily, in my opinion. And Zamir White, I just really want to see how his workload is before I fully trust him in my lineup. I expect him to be, the full workhorse for the running back room, but still, there's a lot to be seen from that situation right now. And running back 20, there's a lot of people under him that I trust more. So I'm gonna sit him this week, and it's kind of a wait and see approach for me.
I understand your skepticism, but I think we've seen how they intend to use him last year at the end of the year when Jacobs was pretty much out. I think that he is what we think he is, but I get wanting to wait and see. But I also think Las Vegas's game plan is pretty much the exact same as the Chargers' game plan.
Yeah.
Ground and pound, rely on your defense. I think this could be like a 21-14 game, easy, if not less. And I mean, I do think Chargers defense is probably better, especially if their starters that they've had for these years can stay healthy and play like they should. But yeah, I get your skepticism. But if you drafted him, more than likely you're probably going to need to play him unless you drafted really well.
Yeah.
And then so my sit is going to be one that's probably been on this list a whole bunch in the last year, and that's going to be old Najee Harris for Pittsburgh, playing at Atlanta for a lot of the same reasons that I like Kyle Pitts. I think Atlanta's going to be fired up. Arthur Smith's now the head coach at Pittsburgh, who's over Najee. And honestly, whatever we think he should do, he's probably not going to do. A lot of people think he should run the ball with Najee. He's probably going to run it with Calvin Austin for all we know. Who knows? That's like the fourth string wide receiver, just FYI, if y'all don't know who he is. But Najee, so also this Atlanta defense is beefed up. Like they've had two big signings in the offseason. They were already good against the run last year, guys. Like, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember what week it was like week 10 or 12. They had still not allowed 100 yards rushing and I don't know if they'd allowed a touchdown yet or not, but I know they had not allowed 100 yards rushing. It was very deep in the season last year. So I am of the full belief that if they only got better, I mean, this defense is going to be legit. And if we're going up against a Pittsburgh offense that was already terrible, and then they add one of the worst head coaches in probably history as far as offensive production to that, I don't see it ending well for Pittsburgh in general, but especially Najee, who doesn't really catch the ball. I don't know. And he wasn't extremely efficient last year as it was. So I'm out. I want to see what Arthur Smith does with this, especially against his old team that's going to be fired up at Atlanta on the road. Yeah, I'm out on Najee. Sorry.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. My wide receiver, kind of a bold one here again. I'm going DK Metcalf. Playing against Denver this week. But as we've seen in the news today, Patrick Surtain just became the most highest paid defensive back in NFL history. He's incredible, two-time All-Pro, and he's going to be on DK every second the DK's on the field, I would imagine. I do think that downgrades him. And I think overall, Seattle, we've heard so much about Kenneth Walker getting involved in the passing game and, getting him the ball is running as well. Yep. Jackson Smith and Jigba, we expect him to take a leap. I'd be a little bit hesitant to absolutely lock in DK to my lineup this week, especially with the tough matchup versus Surtain. So yeah, I'm gonna give DK a week or two and see what happens with this offense under Ryan Grubb and see how it's gonna look. But there we go.
I get the skepticism. I understand that, and I like the pick the point about Surtain because that's excellent. But we know what kind of physical freak DK is and what he's done under a defensive-minded head coach in Pete Carroll that lived in the Stone Age. And I really am excited to see what kind of offensive scheme. Ryan Grubb is probably like licking his chops with a physical freak like DK, like, and what he can do. And I mean, if he does get shut down for Surtain, I'm not saying I'd be a little surprised, but he's got a shot to shut him down than pretty much, just about anybody else in the league.
Yeah.
But I think DK will still be serviceable. Like if you start him, I mean, I think his floor is probably still about maybe 10 points. You're probably not getting that 15 or so that you're hoping for of a starter, but I do think if you start him, it's probably going to be okay. But you might have somebody on your bench that has a lot better matchup, and I think that's where Clay's coming from with this.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that at all. Well, anyway, and moving on to my sit, this kind of goes back to the old Brazil game, and I'm going to probably sit Devontae Smith, who is really ranked extremely high for a wide receiver 2 on his team. Like, I got to go back and look. Like, I mean, he was like top 20. And I'm like, how is this guy top 20?
He's 18 right now.
Like, you're telling me you're starting him over. So you're starting him over. Where's he at? I lost him there for a minute. I'm looking at the rankings right now. Oh, there. So you're starting him over Drake London. You're starting him over Diggs, Ridley, Neighbors, T. Higgins, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore. Are you kidding me? And he's not even the number one option on his offense. Like, unless I missed a news flash somewhere where AJ Brown's out, like, I can't, man. And he's going up against Green Bay, who's got, I mean, I'm not saying, I think it's going to be, like I said earlier, probably a fairly decent offensive game, but Devontae's probably the third option on his team right now. He's going to be behind A.J. Brown, maybe the fourth if you consider Jalen Hurts an option. But he's going to have A.J. Brown ahead of him, and he's going to have Saquon ahead of him. And they're going to give the ball to both of them over Devontae. And not saying that he's not going to get, his 10, 12, and maybe he catches a touchdown. He's pretty solid, but like I just can't start him over those other guys. And being in that pecking order, I think Barkley's going to get more of a piece of the pie than people are thinking. And I think some of that volume is going to be a loss for Smith, personally. And then not to mention Goddard's healthy. I can't tell you how many times Goddard has been out, and that's led to more production for Smith. But with Goddard being back, you lose even more production. Like, it's more of a piece of the pie gone. So it's like Devontae's like scraps, man. And I just couldn't believe he's ranked that high. Like, I feel like I'm missing something, but I can't find any reason for him to rank that high. But I'm sitting Devontae, especially at that. I'm starting some of the other guys I talked about over him for sure.
Yeah. And Devontae, I think it's just every time he plays, like every season, like what did he finish last year? It was probably close to top 15. You mentioned, but yeah. It just feels like I think he's going to have a great year this year. I do understand the sitting this week because, like I said, I don't feel great about that game outside of probably the running backs. But yeah, I mean, overall for this season, I wouldn't be shocked if Devontae's in this range, but this week I do like the sit. But it always feels like he's the number 2, but it always feels like he finishes very high.
Yeah, 19. He finished at 19 last year.
Yeah. So I mean, even as the number 2, he's still a top 20 guy, which is insane to think about, but that's just how good of a player he is.
Yeah.
All right.
That's true.
Moving on to the tight ends. I got David Njoku here as my sit. David Njoku versus Dallas. I love Njoku. I love Cleveland, but it's the Deshaun Watson situation mainly. I want to see how that works. You don't really know what exactly Jerry Jeudy's going to be in the offense. Maybe he overtakes Njoku as that second pass catcher. I just want it's a wait and see approach again, like it has been with so many of these sits. I just kind of want to see how the offense looks this season and what Deshaun Watson we get. Because it doesn't sound like it's going to be a good one. But if it is, then Njoku I think will have a great season. Otherwise, it might be a little bit of a down one. So.
Yeah, I completely understand that pick, but I do think that he is part of our offense, but he's also coming in a little banged up. We don't know what it is. I would understand sitting him just to make sure he's healthy and see what happens with the offense, because I do think that whether Watson plays or not, I think Njoku is going to be involved being this good of an athlete. I think the offensive coordinator seen it last year and realized we got to get this guy out of the ball more because he really took a step forward that we've been expecting for years. And, I mean, I get it, but I also get, like, if you drafted him, he's probably your only tight end. And if he's healthy, I think you play him, but maybe lower your expectations this week, but don't give up on him. So I get that for sure. My sit's got to be Brock Bowers. What else? Y'all heard me talk about him as an injury. He's been nursing this foot injury for at least the last 3 weeks. Still not practicing. This time, like I said, is valuable for a rookie to be getting chemistry, learn the offense, and building a rapport with his quarterback. And he's not there. This ain't Georgia, okay? This is the NFL. Everybody's freaking good. Like, everybody. Like, they're all as good as Brock Bowers is. I don't care what you think about Brock Bowers. They're all good. Like, this is where the elites separate themselves. And if you don't have that time, I don't think you can do that Like, even if he is elite, like, you still got to put that time and practice in. Nobody just steps on the field and dominates at this level. And I'm out on him this week. I'm pretty, and he's the fourth option, like I've talked about several times, behind Adams, Myers, and Zamir White. And, honestly, might be behind Mike Mayer right now until he gets healthy and practices enough. So count me out if he plays, and then if he don't play, obviously count me out also.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot this week. Let's go to the sleepers. All right. So for our sleepers. We got to stay out of the top 10, I believe, for quarterbacks, right? Is that what we went with? Or top 12? Top 12.
Yeah. 12.
I got Baker, number 14 this week. My boy
it.
Baker.
Love it.
I've already talked about Chris Godwin, and I feel that Tampa Bay is going to really come out firing this week against a pretty poor Washington secondary. Baker, I think I even have him it's a super flex league, so the quarterbacks went crazy. I have him starting as my one for this season, which I don't feel bad about it because, last year he finished like QB 11, QB 9, somewhere around there.
QB 10.
QB 10, there we go.
QB 10. I looked it up because I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. But anyway, go ahead.
I love some Baker this year, and this week I do really think he's going to have a big week. So give me Baker.
Yep, love that pick. We're going to talk about him some more here in a minute. But yeah, I'm all about that. Mine is a little bit deeper, a little bit more conventional, probably a little controversial, especially considering his preseason. But I think you could do worse than firing up Daniel Jones as a sleeper this week against Minnesota, I don't think their defense has gotten any better. Like, it was terrible last year. And everybody's down on the Giants offense, and I get it. But Brian Daboll's still there. This is a terrible Minnesota defense they're going to be going up against. I think he comes in with a heck of a game plan for week 1, and I think we could see some good volume out of Daniel Jones. And everybody forgets how well he runs the ball. And I guarantee Brian Daboll ain't forgot, So say he throws in there 5 for 50 on the ground, throws for 250, 2 touchdowns, probably an interception. You're looking at probably a, low-end QB1 at the end of the week, maybe. He's probably going to be low in QB1, but still, he's probably could be better than some of these other guys that got some tough matchups that are kind of low in QB1s right now. Obviously, if you drafted, it's kind of hard to say like this is a deeper league because if you drafted the guy top 10, top 12, you're not sitting him for Daniel Jones. But I'm just saying, like, say your quarterback gets hurt for some reason before Sunday and you're in a bind looking for somebody. I think Daniel Jones is a good option because he's got Malik Neighbors, he's got Devin Singletary, he's got Daniel Bellinger, he's got Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, Giants are their defense is going to probably be one of the worst parts of their team also. And I think that's going to lead to more offensive production from their offense, or at least driving them to try to be more productive. There's a chance that Daniel Jones could be productive this week.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Running back. I'm going with Chuba Hubbard. Going against our lovely Saints this week.
Chumbawamba.
Yeah. Listed at running back 31. So, even if you're starting 3 running backs, he still might not be your top 3 running backs. He's probably closer to your 4th or 5th on your roster.
Yep.
I like Chuba this week. If we know anything about the Saints, it's that we don't really have any defensive tackles still. Still one of the biggest issues with the team. And I think that's going to be pretty good success for Chuba this week. And I just don't really have a lot of faith in the Saints defense to stop a lot in the front 7 at least. I do love our secondary, and I think that's going to lean towards Carolina running the ball a little bit more. And just he has all the opportunity in the world as long as Jonathan Brooks is out, because I really just don't see Miles Sanders getting involved a ton.
No.
So yeah, give me Chuba this week.
I love that pick, but a lot of people don't realize he finished at RB 27 last year, and that is 1 spot above J.S. Jacobs and 1 spot above Javonte Williams and a couple spots above Zach Moss and Ezekiel Elliott, right behind Austin Eckler. Not great, but also people forget that he did not start all season last year. He didn't start until I think it was like 4th or 5th week, and he still finished at RB 27. He's not nothing flashy, but he is a solid floor running back with this offense that should be a little bit better. And as Clay alluded to, our nose tackle situation in New Orleans is terrible. They're probably going to be able to move the ball, and I like that pick a lot. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Chuba Hubbard the first 4 weeks while Jonathan Brooks is out, so I love that pick. My sleeper is going to be, believe it or not, and he fell in the sleeper range, is Tony Pollard at Chicago. I've been high on this guy all offseason. I hope he doesn't let me down again because I really thought he was going to be something special last year. And now we're talking about him being a sleeper at running back and not the MVP of the league, which is just crazy. But, yeah, at Chicago, man, I don't know about you, Clay, but, like, their Chicago defense has been ranked high. Like, where did that come from? Like, they're projected for a lot of points. And, like, I mean, maybe I missed some of the signings. I need to go back and look. But, like, I'm trying to figure out why they're projected so high.
Their linebackers are very good. And then also, I mean, you got Montez Sweat on the end. And I like the secondary. Like, they got talent, but it hasn't really come together fully.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand.
Well, the Chargers,
yeah.
Chargers had a lot of talent a couple of years ago, too. They literally had an all-pro defense, literally, and they come out and stunk. So I think it takes more than that, but either way, I like Tony Pollard. We got a new offensive coaching staff, offensive regime coming in with Tennessee. I fully expect them to make a splash with this offense. I think Pollard is going to be at the heart of that with Calvin Ridley and Will Levis. I mean, I think Tajay Spears is going to be fine this week too, but I just think Tony Pollard's going to be easily RB2. Maybe, if he gets a touchdown and 4 or 5 catches, we could be talking about low-end RB1 this week at Chicago, where the weather's not went bad yet. So, and not to mention, even if it is cold or windy or whatnot, they're going to run the ball more, and that benefits Tony Pollard also. So, I like him sleeping this week.
Yeah, I'm very excited to watch that game for both offenses, honestly. I just want to see we're going to know a lot about those teams going forward after this week. But going to
this
receivers.
Week tell us a lot about a lot of these players.
Yeah, for sure. Going to receivers, a guy that shouldn't be listed as a sleeper in my opinion, but he is. He's number 33 on the board. So if you're starting 3 receivers, you still might not even have the opportunity to start him. Going Scary Terry. Going back to that Tampa and Washington game, Scary Terry, the number 1 option in Washington, no doubter. Can't even name you the 2 this week. I mean, it's just you're taking a shot at who that number 2 option is for a receiving threat. Maybe it's Austin Eckler, but still, it's Scary Terry's show. Tampa Bay secondary, not the best. You do have Antoine Winfield at safety. I like him, but their cornerback situation has been shaky recently. Lost one of their starting corners. They traded him to Detroit this past offseason, so they got some changes there. I think Terry and JD5 effect is going to be in full force this week. And I mean, Scary Terry, I've drafted him as like my 4th receiver in a couple of the leagues, and I'm probably starting him over some of them guys that I drafted ahead of him this week because I like the matchup.
Yeah, I love that. I love Terry. And unfortunately, so every time I come to his range, especially my last 2 drafts, I have to pick between Terry McLaurin and Rashee Rice every time. And I just cannot not pick Rashee Rice. Because I'm a firm believer in whoever the primary pass catcher is in that offense in Kansas City is somebody I want to be a part of now. And especially with Travis Kelce getting older. But man, I love me some Terry McLaurin too. Like, I mean, it ain't because I don't love, Rashee Rice's potential, but dude, Terry McLaurin with his deep ball catching ability and Jaden Daniels' deep ball accuracy and throwing ability, like it's a match made. And I'm excited and anxious to see how it works out. And I'm all in on Terry too. Like, I don't have him in any league because I keep getting Rice, but I mean, I hope I don't have to go up against him. I will eventually, but I hope they sit him when I play him. So my guy that I picked at sleeper, which this guy was a lot lower than I thought too, Clay, because my internet's been so sketch, I'm going to let you pull up where he's ranked at on ESPN. But my sleeper is Christian Watson for Green Bay. All right. So I got some wisdom to drop on y'all that I heard the other day that I've been saving for this pod because I had a feeling I was going to be talking about him on this. And I drafted him last night really for this reason in particular. And I missed him the other day because he went way earlier than I was anticipating. But Christian Watson at Philadelphia, he's healthy right now. and which is a shocker because he hasn't been healthy the last 2 years almost. Okay. But they finally figured out why he kept having hamstring issues. And this is one of these injury analysts I listened to on the pod came on and they were asking, like, what do you think about Christian Watson? Do you think his hamstrings hold up? Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, so he talked to some of the trainers in Green Bay. They did some tests on him after the season was over, and they determined that one of Christian Watson's hamstrings was 20% stronger than the other one for some reason. They don't know why. But 20% stronger. And what that does is it throws his gait and his balance all out of whack. Okay. So when he's pushing off with one side, it's a lot stronger than the other. It's kind of hard. He had a good analogy for it. I can't remember what it was, but what it is, they worked on that and they've got him pretty much back to equal strength. And we've seen him pretty much be healthy this offseason. And I really think if that was, and the way he described it was that could really be the problem why he kept injuring his hamstrings so many times. And now that they've got that, and that's why I'm like, if you find a problem and you solve it, that's possible root cause with somebody with his talent. I mean, we've seen those 3 touchdown games. We've seen his run after the catch ability and how big and athletic and fast he is. Like, if you keep him healthy, you're talking about a top 10 wide receiver in my book, personally. And I know that's crazy talk. And honestly, if he is healthy, I think he could be the best wide receiver in this game. And yes, I know what I'm saying because I know who's on the other side of that ball in A.J. Brown. But with Watson's playmaking ability, his age, I think Brown's fine. So I don't have anything against him, but I just think Watson's potential from what we've seen from him and what he's done with his limited ability and his limited health, if we see him healthy for a full season, I don't think it's out of the range of possibilities to see him finish above A.J. Brown this year. And I think, if he comes in this game healthy, I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I've got him on one of my teams, and I'm having to try to decide if I'm going to start him or Rashee Rice this week. And I got to know tomorrow on Thursday. But either way, I think if he's truly healthy, I mean, we're talking about a stud, and this guy won't be ranked this low for the rest of the season if he blows up and stays and makes through this game healthy. Not to mention, if Matt LaFleur, he's seen and knows what this guy's capable of. Dude's been around. He's watched them all. Like, I think he's going to have a big-time game plan for him if he's healthy and staying healthy. It's going to be a large part, and, we've all been talking about we don't know who the wide receiver one in this offense is coming to this point. I think we'll know after this game if he's healthy. So
it's a very interesting situation there. I mean, there's 4 guys that could be the one there, and it wouldn't surprise any of us. But I mean, Watson definitely has the leg up and has for a couple years, but it's just he can't stay out there. So if he does, then he's definitely. Getting that true number 1 role in Green Bay would be huge for him. Like, it absolutely would. He's listed at 38 this week. Right, 1 above Jaden Reed, one under Jackson Smith and Jigba, which is very interesting.
I love Christian Watson this week and for the year. If he maintains his health, I mean, easily top 20 wide receiver this year, and I think he has top 10 potential. Like, I think his floor is top. If he doesn't get hurt, doesn't miss a game, I think he's top 20 wide receiver floor, and ceiling's top 10. So, anyway, on to tight end sleeper.
All right. I have our boy Taysom Hill. I mean, it's just the easiest. It's the easiest way to go. Number 21 on the week. I mean, I'm very interested to see how he works with the new offensive coordinator. I think he's going to get used even more. I think it's just going to be a match made in heaven with him and Kubiak at the OC. And listed at 21. The way that he gets the ball, like he's one of the few tight ends that you're guaranteeing will get the ball like 5+ times a game. And that there alone is good enough to start him most weeks. Especially, I mean, it's never exciting playing some of these tight ends that you have on here. With Taysom, you get a little bit more excitement with the running ability and everything. And then who knows how he's going to be used as a pass catcher this year. So,
I love that pick. Honestly, it's so funny because I really feel like these analysts have no idea how to rank Taysom.
No.
And that's why he just gets stuck down there at the bottom somewhere because it's like if they put him up high and he busts, then they get hammered on. But if they put him at the bottom and he blows it up, I feel like they just don't get hammered as hard. So they're like, let's just put him low. He's always a possibility to be a top 5 or the number 1 tight end for the week every week because, like you just said, the many different ways he uses and the volume he gets. But it's not out of the norm for him to get the ball 5 times and come away with 3 points, you know, but he also might get the ball 5 times and have 30 points.
Yeah. He might have 2 touchdowns.
I've seen that before. and it is really hard if you're in this area looking for a sleeper at tight end to not pick a guy that has the ability to win your week for you. Yeah. Like he literally has that at tight end. So
last year he was
honestly,
I think he was a top 10 tight end last year. Like I think he was very close if he wasn't a top 10. Like especially with some of the injuries we had with like Kittle and not Kittle, Hawkinson, Andrews, like some of them guys. I think Taysom finished top 10.
12.
12. Wow. I mean that's insane for a guy that's not even a tight end.
Yeah. A tight end, yeah.
Yeah.
So top 12 tight end right there. Yeah, love that pick. Mine is going to be a little bit farther down and a little bit lesser named. I really didn't even learn about this guy until the other night because in a draft I took TJ Hawkinson and didn't take another tight end because I got an IR spot. And I knew I was going to slide him in and just pick one up off the waiver because all the other ones I liked were pretty much gone. So I was like, okay. So I started looking at the available. I was like, there's this Johnny Munt guy in Minnesota. And I was like, man. So I went and looked. He actually had some productive games when Hawkinson was out last year. And man, really, if you look in Minnesota, you got Jefferson, you got Jefferson, you got Addison, not really a third wide receiver. You still got Aaron Jones, but I mean, for a team that doesn't have a great defense, you got Sam Darnold, who we've seen throw to his tight end in the past before. He's the starter there in Minnesota. And I really think that he could be a serviceable tight end for you until Hawkinson comes back, especially if they just kind of continue to use the game plan of how they use their tight end with this guy and how they use it. Now, I'm not saying he's going to put up Hawkinson numbers, but if they use him like they used Hawkinson before, I mean, you're looking low in tight end 1, maybe, every week with a floor. Now, that might be a ceiling too, but I mean, is it out of the realm to think you might get 5 for 50 every week? Man, you give me 10 points at my tight end spot, I'll take it all day, every day. So I like Johnny Munt. I'm curious to see how they use him this week. And honestly, I'm probably going to pick him up and start him in that league that I drafted Hawkinson. And he might be my guy until Hawkinson comes back. So yeah, I like Johnny Munt a lot. At Minnesota playing against the Giants, who's terrible on defense.
Would you go Munt or Tyler Conklin this week?
That's a tough choice. I'd probably go
this week / the next 4, I guess.
Yeah, I like Conklin, and Conklin looks a lot better. I really need to see how Rodgers treats Conklin in the offense because that's ultimately if he likes him or not. Heck, Conklin might have accidentally dropped his sunglasses and Rodgers wrote him off, so he might not ever get the ball. I mean, that's how Rodgers hit, or he might have looked at him wrong, or, Rodgers might have been yelling at him and he might have started crying and he's like, fine, I'm not giving you the ball no more. And then you're out the offense, coach, So, but I do like if Rodgers likes him, throws the ball, Conklin's like easily top 10 for me too. Like these two guys are in that same area, I'm thinking. So it's kind of a coin flip. What you're to me, you go with the better quarterback, and that's Rodgers. So I think, and especially with Mike Williams still coming fresh off that injury, you got Breece Hall, but I mean Tyler Conklin could be the third option behind Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. So I'd probably go Conklin. But I do think Munt's intriguing and could be somebody to look at in the future until Hawk comes back. So, but that's going to wrap up our start sit sleepers, guys. I've got a streaming defense. Clay, did you do any streaming defense or kick or anything?
Yeah, I got defense. Okay, so the first one I wrote down is actually the same one as you. So I changed mine.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so we got two streaming defenses for you. Then we're going to get you a kicker. And then I got just a couple guys that we're going to talk about that are under 60% for week one that I think will probably be added a lot after week one. But my streaming defense is going to be Atlanta versus Pittsburgh for a ton of the same reasons. If you listen to this pod that we already talked about, strong free agent signings by the Atlanta defense, who was already proficient before. They're at home against the Pittsburgh offense of their former coach that ran out of town pretty much. And Atlanta's going to be fired up to embarrass him when he comes back to town. And not to mention, I don't think Russell Wilson is who he used to be. And we seen that last year, unfortunately. And I was on the Russ bus and it ran off a cliff essentially. And I don't think he has much left in the tank. I really think he's just there to mentor Justin Fields. And whenever Justin Fields is like fully ready to go, it's just going to be a swap. And I think Fields is by far the better quarterback there, but we won't see him for a couple weeks, I don't think. So give me Atlanta versus Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So,
that was the one I was going to go with.
Yeah.
Mine is going to be the Bengals this week. Bengals defense, I think, is pretty talented overall. I actually just broke down their team overall before I did this pod. And the front seven, I like a decent amount. Secondary is a little weak. I think the cornerbacks have to prove themselves, but you're going against New England, Jacoby Brissett, and they're like 15th on the board, like on the free agency board.
Yeah.
So you could have easily drafted them pretty much whenever you wanted. But most people probably have them as the number one defense this week, yet they're still probably available in most of your leagues. So I'm gonna go Bengals there.
Yeah. Like that pick a lot. And then going on to a kicker. This one's not as popular, but you never know. You might not have drafted a kicker, or maybe yours got cut or hurt or something. Who knows? But this is a guy, I didn't even know who he was. I was doing some research before. I like kickers that kick in domes. That's probably been known if you listen to this, but Jake Bates for Detroit. Didn't even know who he was. Detroit's kicker actually tore his hamstring, season-ending surgery in the preseason. They signed this kid. I don't even know where he came from, honestly, but I know he kicked a 53-yard field goal. I know he kicked a 53-yard field goal in preseason, and he's the guy for Detroit who's got a great offense. They're going up against the Rams, whose defense is not that great. They're in a dome, and he's only owned in like 40% of leagues. And the fact that nobody, like, he's pretty underknown, like that 40% of leagues is probably a lot of Detroit leagues. And maybe people that only draft kickers in domes. So there's a decent chance Jake Bates is out there for you. And I think he could do worse than having him as your kicker, especially against the Rams at home in week one. So
he's actually my kicker in two of my leagues. Mainly because he kicks in the dome. And then I'll give a kicker as well, who's a kicker in two of my other leagues, and it's Younghoe Koo, another dome guy in Atlanta. I love the offense. I think they're going to score a lot this week, especially against Pittsburgh, and he's been consistent pretty much every year, yet he still is pretty low on the rankings. Give me Koo.
As long as he doesn't get his cleats stolen again.
Yeah.
I mean, that tells you. All right, so just a little side story right here, right before the end. Younghoe Koo had his car stolen with his kicking cleats in it. And he put out a mass message and asked and said he would not press charges and they could keep the car if they would return kicking cleats. Dead serious, true story. Like, straight up, I just need my kicking cleats back. You can have my car, will not press charges. I don't know if he got him back or not, but either way, that was an interesting story and excellent point. Love Younghoe Koo. So a couple waiver wire week one picks, just a little preempt here because we don't really have a whole waiver wire week episode. These are all guys owned in under 60% of leagues. The number one we've talked about several times on this pod already, Baker Mayfield for Tampa Bay, was quarterback 10 last year in fantasy. And somehow he's still only owned in 35% of leagues. And, I mean, he should at least be a bench stash. Like, there's no way he should only be owned in 35. Like, if you have a backup, which some people don't have backups, and that's fine. But he is well worth it because he could very well be better than your starter you drafted easily. And there's no way he should only be owned. I honestly, and I'll be honest, I had a draft yesterday. I drafted Kyler Murray. And then I looked down there, and Baker's sitting there as one of the backups. I drafted him. And then I come to find out they have the same bye week. And you know what? I'm still not going to cut him because if Kyler gets hurt or something happens before week 11, Baker is by far the best choice that's on the waivers right now. So I'm going to literally hang on to a guy that has the same bye week for like 10 weeks because I think he's that worth hanging on to.
And he might honestly have week-to-week value over Kyler.
He could.
Yeah. There might be a matchup very well where you prefer.
He very well could be. So Baker's my quarterback right now. Running back, another guy that I cannot believe is owned in this few leagues. Jaleel McLaughlin for Denver. A lot of hype around this guy. I love Javonte Williams, but I don't think people are forgetting about the Sean Payton offense in New Orleans whenever they had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, and both of them were top 20 wide running backs. Okay. Now, do they have this potential? I don't know. Probably not, but is it out of the realm for them both to be top 24 running backs? Probably not. And there's talks that this offense is very similar to the Saints of old, and that Javonte Williams is the Ingram and McLaughlin is the Kamara. And if that is the case, a part of it, and he is owned in less than 45% of leagues, okay, and he could be a PPR gem by the end of the season. And we've seen him last year. He was owned like over 70% last year, and ain't nothing changed. I'm confused on why nobody's in on Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, I know they got that rookie, but
his situation's honestly gotten better. You're good. It broke up for a little bit, but you're good. His situation honestly got better with the Pirine cut, losing him from last year. McLaughlin's going to be awesome this year, and it kind of scares me with how high I've been on Javonte, but I do think both of them are going to be good.
Yep. I think so. I think it's going to be one of those rare offenses where both running backs are very startable each week.
Yeah.
And then my wide receiver is Josh Palmer, and for the Chargers, owned in less than 40% leagues. I'm getting him in like the 14th round almost every draft. I didn't get him the other night because I needed a running back more than I needed a wide receiver. But a good friend of mine, he was like, I don't know who to pick. I was like, pick Josh Palmer. Because he needed a wide receiver. He was sitting right there, 14th round. And literally the number one wide receiver in his offense with the most and probably the best chemistry with his quarterback, Justin Herbert, who's an extremely talented quarterback. And he's got more chemistry and more field time with Herbert than anybody on this entire offense, okay? And until I see Ladd McConkey come in as the wide receiver one and act like one, I just don't believe it. I think Palmer's the wide receiver one all day, every day, and I think he leads all wide receivers on this team in stats. Counting stats, catches, yards, touchdowns, probably all the above. And he might be great, but there has been hardly any really good positive buzz come out of that camp about Ladd McConkey, and it doesn't mean that he's not going to be good. I just don't think he's as good coming out as people thought. So I'm out on Ladd. I'm in on Josh Palmer. So yeah, like him a lot. Owned in less than 40% of fantasy leagues right now, and he's the number one wide receiver on his team. And it might not be a heavy passing offense, but I would bet that Herbert throws the ball 30 to 35 times a game. Okay? And if Palmer's his number one target, it's not out of the realm to think he gets 30% of those targets, which would be roughly 10 targets a game. I think if you can get that on free agency or at the end of your draft right now, you should probably take it because that's going to include red zone targets. So, like Josh Palmer a lot, and I don't think he'll be on this. He'll be on the waiver wire ad, but 1 week. So, anything?
No, I like that. I mean, I don't trust a ton
of.
Yeah,
I know you don't.
But at the end of the day, it's a
somebody's got to get the ball, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, somebody's got to get the ball. It can't be nobody. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are going to get the ball 20 times a game each, probably, and then if not, somewhere in there, and then Herbert's going to throw the ball 30 times a game, and I think Palmer gets 10 of those targets.
Yeah, I mean, for the pure fact of McConkey's been drafted in every draft that I've done, and Palmer has not. Palmer absolutely should be owned.
There has literally been like 2 or 3 beat writers say Palmer is the one.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and then tight end, this guy I've talked about a lot, and I don't know if I'm going to pick him up yet or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's probably one of the highest added tight ends out there, and that's going to be Colby Parkinson for the Rams. Now, they've got buku of pass catchers. I get it. You got Puka, you got Cooper, you got Kyron Williams. They got guys. But He's owned in 1.3% of leagues. The Rams signed him to a 3-year deal to replace Tyler Higbee. Okay. And he is pretty much Tyler Higbee's twin as far as how his playing style is. He's an excellent blocker, which is why Sean McVay signed him. But he's also a pretty solid route runner and pass catcher. Okay. And McVay said during the preseason, Parkinson will have a Higbee type role in this offense. And if I hear that, that makes me think 5 for 50, because I can't tell you how many weeks it was like clockwork. Tyler Higbee was 5 for 50, 5 for 50, 5 for 60, 5 for 50. Like every now and then you sprinkle in a touchdown. When he gets that touchdown, he was like top 5. But then he doesn't have the touchdown, low end tight end 1. And is it out of the realm to see Colby Parkinson get 6 targets, catch 5 of them for 50 yards every week? No. Not when Stafford's throwing the ball 40 times a game. 10 are going to Puka, 10 are going to Cooper Kupp, or 12 and 12. That's only 24 targets. Okay. Where's the other, 16 going? I mean, all I'm asking for 6 of those to go to Colby Parkinson here and we know Stafford knows how to do it with his tight end. He's been doing it for Higbee for years. So it's not like you're questioning tight end. You're not questioning the offensive system, because that's the same system that Higbee was successful in. And like, this guy's young. We seen him have a couple good games in Seattle, but there was like 9 tight ends catching the ball in Seattle. He's the guy. I'm in on Colby Parkinson. They gave him a 3-year contract for a reason. He's not going to be like rode out or irrelevant. Like, I think it was like 3 years, $22 million. Like, that's like freaking great for a tight end that's not like a stud, So I'm in on Parkinson. I think he's going to be highly added. I think he's going to, have some good usage in this first week for especially, going up against Detroit. So where I think it's probably going to be a highly offensive game. So
yeah. I mean, that's going to be a very positive pickup overall. I do think, it could be a tough matchup this week overall, because I love Detroit's defense, and but I think Parkinson's going to be a solid player for most of the season, and definitely deserves to be picked up in more leagues.
Yeah. So, and that's going to wrap us up, guys. Like, that's a few waiver wire picks. That's our start, sit, sleepers. A kicker and a defense that you can pick up. So we're going to come at y'all. We won't be back until next week. We'll have start, sit, sleepers. We'll have probably start out with our waiver wire edition next week, and then we'll have start, sit, sleepers later on in the week. We're going to try to keep. We added this waiver wire edition on here. I'm probably going to slim down our injury report, because there's going to hopefully not be. It's going to be, a lot of these guys come back, and if they play, I'm not going to talk about them unless they miss game time or they're out. So we're going to try to slim this episode down for the start, sit, sleeper later on the week. And we're going to have a waiver wire edition, and hopefully we're going to keep that consistent for y'all and try to shorten up these episodes for the rest of the year. But we appreciate everybody listening. Please go like, subscribe, download on your platform of choice. We're on just about every platform there is. Give us some comments, give us some feedback, what you want to hear more of, what you enjoy, what you don't want to hear more of. Reach out, let us know what you want to hear. Hey, you got a prayer request, send that to us. We'll pray for them before the podcast, but we just appreciate everybody. We appreciate our sponsors. Thank you for supporting us. Y'all go out, get your car detailed with Crown Detailing, and just thank you for everybody for what you do, and y'all keep chasing that trophy.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me.
I feel the fire, Christmas.